In-depth journalism in the Memphis community, the Daily Memphian is of Memphis, not just in Memphis, and seeks to tell the stories of this city. TheDailyMemphian.com. Truth in place.
Welcome back, Chris. This is a version of the podcast that comes as slightly a surprise. There were some chatter before the pod, before Wednesday, but it was announced this morning by the NBA that the Grizzlies are going to play in 2 international games against the Orlando Magic. One in Berlin, Germany on January the 15th, Uber Arena, and the other at O2. I think they just call it the O2 or O2 Arena in London on January the 18th. So that's the big Grizzlies news of the day, the big Grizzlies news of the week. We're back. We took a week off last week. It was a chaotic week for the both of us. What do we make of it? What do we think? Grizzlies overseas. Grizzlies playing in Europe. Cheerio.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's the kind of thing. I mean, it's, last year, I'm not sure how the NBA makes the decisions, right? I mean, last year it was the Pacers and the Spurs. Spurs made a lot of sense because of Wemby and him as an international, player who brings a lot of attention, a lot of interest in the Pacers. Who knows? Grizzlies Magic. You do have, a German player in Franz Wagner of note. Maybe
Dude,
the most
Mo Wagner.
Well, yeah, but both the Wagner brothers. So probably the most prominent German player in the league. I'm guessing. I'm doing that off the top of my head, but I gotta assume that's probably true. So that magic makes sense there. And like John Morant is one of the bigger stars in the league when you look at jersey sales and interest and social media hits and all that kind of stuff. So it seems like a pretty good pairing for the league to do that. You can't do the Lakers and the Celtics every time you do something. Those are good teams to give more attention to. Good teams in smaller markets. Obviously, it's should be a good experience, hopefully, for Grizzlies players. Hopefully, the Grizzlies will get value out of that. John Morant specifically, in terms of his brand. One of my first reactions was, man, I hope Ja's healthy enough to play in those games, because it's been dicey the past couple of years in terms of his availability. To me, there's going to be a real spotlight on his availability for those games. Those are some of sort of my first thoughts about it. I have other thoughts too, but where do you want to go with it?
The conversation around it is interesting. There's a number of different directions we can go. We can talk about what it means for the schedule overall. We can talk about what it means for the Grizzlies MLK Day celebration, because obviously this is happening over that, so that's not going to happen. There's the Desmond Bane angle, but I just think it's noteworthy that the Grizzlies are getting the chance to play on an international stage here for all the reasons you mentioned. And it's clear, why is Orlando in Germany? Because they have 2 star German players. Why are the Grizzlies in Germany? Part of it is Ja, clearly, right? Because he is such an attraction and a draw and so exciting to watch, and he's got global fans. So, I think that is definitely part of it. But I think there's other parts of it, too. I mean, Santi Aldama is the only player from Spain. I imagine people in Europe are going to be trying to... I imagine we're going to see Spanish Grizzlies fans in London, right? I think that's likely. Or in Germany. I think that there's that plays a role in it too. We all know that Isolo, had a lot of German success before he in Bundesliga, before he, got to the States. And so I think there's a pull there. But it just speaks to, I guess, the star power at the top of the Grizzlies roster, the construction of it, the connections that exist there. But, it speaks to where the Grizzlies are and how they're viewed. And I think that they don't just, I don't think we'd be seeing the Pelicans in an international game next year, right? They're a small market, but they don't have the star power that the Spurs or the Grizzlies do,
So this is the first scheduling thing I think that's come out for next season. The full schedule will come out in probably about 3 weeks if it goes by the typical schedule in the past. There's no set date, but that's typically when it's been, sort of that third week in August, just about. And between now and then, other stuff will leak out, right? The opening night stuff, some of the opening night games, the Christmas Day slate, some of that stuff will come out. So I'll be interested to see if like the Grizzlies, how the Grizzlies do in terms of national TV games, right? Because it was really big a few years ago after they first popped, and then it kind of receded a little bit. And so, this is an indicator of something in terms of international appeal, maybe. But is that going to be compounded with a decent amount of national TV games for a small market team that was lost in the first round as an 8 seed last year, and where the star player has not been reliable in the court? I don't know. I really have no idea where that's going to go. I mean, they're not going to be a top 4 or 5 team in terms of national TV, and they're probably not going to be a bottom 4 or 5 team either. But like, where do they land in that broad middle range in terms of national TV games? That'll be interesting to see when the schedule comes out.
Yeah, no, that will be interesting. And just to revisit the last point too, like something I wanted to point out was just like there's a difference between global stars and European stars and regular stars in the NBA. And I think Ja is in that global territory. But like, you know, Frank Ntilikina, I hope I pronounced that right. Still in the
Well,
NBA?
I
Former
don't.
Knicks draft pick.
I don't think he's in the NBA. Is he in the NBA?
I don't
It's
even know.
been. I don't think he is. I think he's out of the league.
Probably out of the league. Maybe on buried on like Washington or something.
If he's
I,
still in the league, I need to update my spreadsheets because I haven't typed that name in a couple years.
but you know what I mean. Like they're not putting players. They're not putting teams that don't have prominent European players in a game like that either. So
Right.
I just think that and I want to go through some of it later, the European history of the Grizzlies. But um, I guess the before we get into the MLK stuff as well, just I guess how do you categorize this in terms of being a big deal? Like how big of a deal do you think that this is?
It's a medium-sized deal, I
Medium
guess.
sized deal? Yeah.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing because so last year, and then there's a couple things to spin off from this. So last year, this same thing was Pacers Spurs, as we mentioned before. I remember that happening. I don't remember watching it or there being much fanfare about it. I think it was a big deal in the cities where the games were played, right? It was a big deal for the fans there watching, for the players who went. It wasn't on the NBA calendar for American basketball fans. I don't think it was a big deal, right? And so there's that aspect to it. I think people in Memphis and Orlando will be interested in it, and I think people in Berlin and London will be interested in it. I don't think your average, general NBA fan who lives in other cities in the country will care that much. So there's that part of it.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal, but it's not like the NBA playoffs either, right? I don't know if it's even like the final four of the in-season tournament in Vegas, which probably has more general fan interest.
Right.
But it's not another game on the schedule either, and so I think it's interesting in that regard. To me, it's almost more of a bigger deal for the players who are getting to go and have that experience, especially the star players who are getting to go and sort of. Because it's not just another road game. Like it's not like these guys don't get to visit these cities if they want to, but to go there and sort of be celebrated and play before audiences in these major world cities, I think is a cool thing for the players. And so it's a bigger deal almost for the players and for the franchise than it is, within the context of fan culture.
I think that's right, and I think one thing that's like I don't know, the biggest appeal of it maybe necessarily isn't even the basketball or where it's being played, but just if you're the Grizzlies, like, and you're playing a game there, there's going to be 10 to 18-year-old kids all across those areas that might get to go or might get to see the team or might whatever, and then may end up being Grizzlies fans and buying jerseys and buying
Right.
like, you know, it's interesting because I was listening to, and I thought, I was watching the Gary Parrish show this morning, and I thought Gary and Chris Vernon did a really good job of just talking about that, and I thought that they were totally correct in their assessment, which they were talking about, how their kids, like at the golf tournament, for example, Chris Vernon was telling the story about how his or no, sorry, it was Gary was telling the story about how his kids met Colin Morikawa, the golfer, right? And then when they saw him in
Right.
Happy Gilmore too, they're like, "Oh, that's Colin Morikawa," and now they're looking forward to seeing Colin Morikawa, whatever. That can be John Jaron, right? That can be Santi Aldama. That can be like any of these players on the Grizzlies. The minute they high five
Zach
some
Edey
little
might be back by
kid,
then.
Zach Edey, the minute that they high five some little kid, those kids are going to remember that. And it's an opportunity to build Grizzlies fans internationally. And I think that part of it is a big deal. But I think you're right in saying it's a medium sized deal when you think about it in the big picture of the NBA, because to be honest with you, I don't remember watching the Paris games that happened last year
Right.
because I
Right.
just wasn't that interested
Um,
in Spurs and Pacers.
yeah, and so it's a great opportunity for the Grizzlies, for the players in particular, and for the franchise. Another interesting aspect of it to me, and again, this we'll know this in 3 weeks when the schedule comes out, is sort of how it impacts the schedule itself. I did a quick glance at San Antonio and Indiana about this, and so obviously you build in time off before and after a trip like this, right?
Yeah.
So for both the Pacers and Spurs, they played, it was 2 games in 3 days. I don't know if it's the same. I can't remember from your story situation in Europe, but between the last game they played before the trip and the first game they played after the trip, for though both of those teams, it was a 10-day thing. So there was a 10-day gap where you played the 2 games in Europe, and those are the only games you played over the span of 10 days. I have to assume, and I haven't had a chance to look at the schedule to see where, but you got to make that up elsewhere somewhere. So it's going to lead to more compression somewhere else in the schedule in terms of more. I don't know whether it'll be more back to backs or more 3 and 4 days or more whatever. When you build in that kind of rest of 2 games and 10-day span in the middle of the season, you're going to have to make that up somewhere else. So it'll be interesting to see like where the schedule lands. Does that mean some longer homestands or some more like back to backs in cities kind of stuff? Maybe you do more back to backs with less travel. Is that something that NBA does to make up for that? Where it's more like Denver comes to town and plays a back to back in your city, or you go to Denver to play a back to back, that kind of thing. But I'll be interested to see sort of how it impacts the rest of the schedule.
Yeah. Educated guess. They're playing Sunday the 10th is my guess. And then they're not playing again until the 15th in Berlin. Um, so I imagine you're going to get what, 4 days, 5 day, 4 days on the front end, and then
Right.
a few days when you get back from London, and then back to the usual grind, if I had to guess.
Yeah. So for the Pacers and the Spurs, it was a 4 day. I mean, I don't know whether it was the same for both teams. There was a 4 day gap on one end and a 5 day gap on the other end for both of them. I believe that's the way it was, or something like that. And so we'll see. Again, that'll have to be, you have to make up ground elsewhere in the schedule to get your 82 games in over the same period of time as the other 28 teams.
All right, we got a lot more to break down from this. This also means no MLK Day game in Memphis. They've only not had it twice. What do you make of losing that? Obviously, it stinks for the fans here that look forward to that game every single year. They do a lot around the game in educating and providing opportunities for people to learn about Dr. King and the civil rights movement overall. They've said that they're going to continue to do that this year, even though they're not going to be playing at home, and that they expect they're going to be right back to, I think the term they used was like anchoring the MLK Day NBA sort of festivities next year. Um, what do you make of losing that?
Well, I mean, I think this is an opportunity you have to take. To me, it's not a difficult call to do this trip, even though that is the where it falls on the schedule. And as you reported today, and you had the statement from Jason Wexler, I mean, they are planning. This is just a 1 year gap. I mean, their belief or their assumption, or however you want to phrase it, is that they'll be back, hosting MLK Day games, next season. I don't think it's a big deal. I honestly don't. And I'm someone who's come. I almost feel a little bit like the MLK Day game has become almost something people are dedicated to the idea of more than the reality of. And so I have some hope that maybe like had given it a 1 year break will freshen it up next year and make people lean into it a little bit harder when you come back to it the next year and not take it for granted quite as much. And so, it might turn out okay in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, I think the part that's, I mean, I'm with you. I think that if you're going to be given this opportunity, you take it. Um, Given all we talked, I mean, there's been 78, I believe, preseason NBA games played internationally and only 35 um, regular season games played internationally. And the Grizzlies, they've done France and Spain, I believe, in the past, but that was the preseason. So this is going to be one, the first regular season game ever played in Germany, and two, it's an opportunity that the franchise hadn't had yet. So I think that when it comes to making this decision, you do it. I think what stinks if you're a fan of the Grizzlies that lives in Memphis or around Memphis and you go to the games is, usually that MLK Day game, is a big home game against a premier opponent, right? If it was Orlando, people would be really excited for that, like a home game against Desmond Bain on MLK Day against a playoff team. So you're going to lose that. But I mean, they're with the preseason fans or season ticket holders will still have 43 games, I think, at home. So that's a small bummer,
Oh,
I think.
with preseason, but yeah, no, you make a good point though. In some ways, it is sort of a little bit of a loss in triplicate in terms of regular season home stuff because it's not like you're not hosting an MLK Day game. It's not just that you're not hosting the MLK Day game; it's that you're losing a game, and that game, not only are you losing one of your 41, which they play too many games anyway, so it only matters so much.
Yeah, I agree.
But you're losing one of the 41, but that one of the 41 happens to be the MLK Day, which is always one of the biggest games on the schedule, and it also happens to be the Orlando game where Desmond Bain was going to come home, right? And so if you were playing this trip and it was like in mid-February and you were playing the New York Knicks or whatever or some other team, like it would really be no loss whatsoever. But you are losing both the MLK and you're losing the Desmond Bain return and you're losing one of the 41. Again, losing one of the 41, not really a negative in my book.
Yeah. The video, I guess, is just going to have to wait for Desmond Bain, or maybe they'll just do it online. I don't know.
I mean, you can do both. I mean, I think they will. Jeff asked me this on radio this morning. If he doesn't return for another year and a half, will they play the video? I'm like, hell yeah, they'll play the video.
Yeah, they're gonna play the video.
Why wouldn't you play the video? So yes, Desmond Bain will get his return video whenever he returns to FedEx Forum.
Was it Mike Conley or who returned during COVID when there was no one there, and then they did it again?
It may have been Mark.
Might have been Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did it twice. They played like the video twice because the first time that they played it, there was no fans, so they played it again. Yeah, I mean, you could do something online, and then when Desmond Bain comes back to FedEx Forum, eventually you just do it again. But that is a bummer.
Desmond Bain will get his return moment in FedEx Forum whenever it happens.
Do you remember anything about the preseason games that happened? I'm asking you about something that happened like 18, 20 years ago. But do you?
I remember absolutely nothing about it. No.
I watched part of it last night. The entire preseason game between Barcelona and the Grizzlies in 2003, and I think Mark was playing for Barcelona at the time in the game against Pau, who was playing for the Grizzlies, and they were wearing the black throwback Memphis uniforms that they're rumored to be wearing again this season for the 25th anniversary. It was in Spanish, so I couldn't understand anything on the broadcast, but it was a spectacle. That thing was sold out. Place was packed. It was pretty cool. And the one thing that struck me, though, I tweeted this out. The sideline reporter at the start of the broadcast is standing preposterously close to Hubie Brown, in the guy's face as he's doing the interview. And it just made me think, after COVID, that's never the case anymore. People don't stand that close to each other.
Right.
Maybe that's European culture. I don't know. But I was just curious if you remembered any of that, because Memphis did lose a preseason game in Spain to an international opponent.
I mean, the Gasol brothers in Barcelona was a big deal. The results of preseason basketball pretty much never a big deal, but the Gasol brothers playing each other in Barcelona certainly a big deal.
So if we're gonna do connections here, I already mentioned it, but Isolo obviously played or coached, I should say, a lot of years in Germany. Was very successful there. I feel like that game in Berlin is going to be a road game for the Grizzlies, though. Another interesting tidbit: Brett Berman, who used to be a scout for the Grizzlies, ended up becoming the GM of the London Lions, which is like the biggest professional team, one of the bigger professional basketball teams in London. And that was the team that Isolo beat in the championship. So or in the Euro Cup, I should say, semifinals. So there's your two connections to Germany and to London if you are the Memphis Grizzlies. But not a ton outside of that. The Grizzlies have had a number of European players. I tried to take on the challenge of listing out all of them. And I don't know, maybe somebody can think of one that I couldn't find, but I did everything I could to name every single one of them. I know you went through this exercise this morning with Jeff, but like, if I were to tell you, like, in order, who are the best European Grizzlies players to come to mind, like, how long is that list? Is it just Mark and Powell? And then, I guess if I forced you to name a few others, where would you go?
Oh, there's a big drop off after Mark and Powell. I think, and then you have guys who were good in very short time frames. Jonas Valanciunas and Juan Carlos Navarro, most notably. I think Santi Aldama, in terms of total career to this point, may be the third guy. And then you have a few other guys. Beno Udrih, I think, is well remembered as a short timer. I was a fan of Gordon Giracek, who was
Yeah.
not around very long, but was a guy I liked. Um, and Darko Milicic, was sort of an ignominious figure in the NBA, but was a perfectly decent player for the Memphis Grizzlies by that point. Um, those are the first names that come to mind for me as the main ones.
If you go by points per game as a Grizzly, it goes Pau Gasol 1, Jonas Valanciunas 2, Mark Gasol 3, um, and then Gordon Giracek, and then Santi Aldama so far.
Right.
But I don't know. Is Santi just I can't tell you I watch a lot of Gordon Giracek. Santi better player?
Well, Santi has been with the team multiple years. Giracek was sort of a second round. He was like a guy who was a second round pick, or they acquired via trade, and was a real sleeper, and was like sort of surprise people with how good he was. Didn't surprise him. And then he got traded to Orlando, and that I think he was part of that Drew Gooden, Mike Miller trades. He wasn't around very long, but he was already in his mid-20s by the time he showed up to the NBA. He was a nice little player, Gordon Giracek. I don't know if he was better than Santi.
Is there a team that you think has had the best success over history with European players? I'm trying to think if there's one team in particular. Like the Mavs come to mind because they had Dirk and then Luca, but I'm not
Well,
sure. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, the Spurs with Tony
Spurs,
Parker and Victor Wembanyama. Manu Ginobili is South American, not European.
right.
But in terms of international broadly, the Spurs are sort of associated with that, certainly. But the Mavs, I mean, in terms of having Dirk and Luca both, they had Porzingis for a little bit. So the Mavs probably come immediately to mind.
Is Jokic already the best European player ever?
Oh, that's a good question. Is he past Dirk historically?
He's got two MVPs and a
He's
championship.
got two MVPs. He's got a championship. Dirk's got one MVP and a championship. Dirk, I'm sure, is still higher on the all-time scoring list and some of that kind of stuff. I would say if Jokic has not passed Dirk historically, he will. He's if he hasn't already done it, he's on the trajectory to do it. So yes, I think we will remember Jokic by the time he retires, if we don't already, as the best European player.
Before we move off of this, I mean, I know you said it's a medium deal, but like they're doing this across a bunch of different American sports now where they're playing international games. I guess the main ones being the NFL and the NBA.
Well, the NBA is looking into they're doing their own European league.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
part of what makes it a bigger deal. Is this idea of trying to have an official presence, and whether I'm interested. I haven't read a lot about this. I don't know what that would mean. Are they trying to partner with the existing leagues? Are they trying to go head to head with existing European leagues? I don't know what their idea is with this, but obviously that is something that they're looking at pretty heavily. At the same time that they seem to be backing away a little bit potentially from expansion within the NBA.
You know what I find interesting is you might remember when they hired Isolo, I did a big feature about what people in Europe were saying, and I talked to a lot of different European voices, both with teams and in the media. And almost everyone said that there's this like divide among European basketball. And maybe I'm going too far here because I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on European basketball, but something that was repeated to me over and over again is that there's almost like this Western European way of thinking about basketball and this Eastern European thinking about basketball. And like the Eastern European thinking of the game is essentially like our teams are better than the NBA. Like we can compete with anybody. Like, the NBA is bullcrap basketball. It's terrible basketball, whatever. Then there's this Western European way of thinking about it where, they're adopting ideas from the NBA. They're embracing the style of the NBA. And so, when we bring up this NBA Europe idea, this is probably something that someone should write about that's not a local beat writer for a team, but a national person about. I just wonder what kind of traction they might get over there, and if there might be some pushback on that based on everything that I've heard and learned about European basketball in the days since the Grizzlies brought Isolo here, and so that to me is fascinating. I do wonder if it has a chance to be really successful, or if people will
and
push
I
against
think,
it.
and I don't know how true this still is. I don't know whether this is still true. There used to be a limit on the number of American players you would have on teams over there, to
Yeah,
keep them more rooted, in European basketball in their countries. If those limits maybe those limits don't exist anymore. I don't know. Maybe that's just like a Chinese thing now. Maybe it's not a European thing. I apologize if I'm wrong about that, but I think that used to be the case. But if you just really completely throw that open and you have a team, would you have NBA Europe teams over there that are more populated by American players than current European teams are? Would that have any impact at all? I don't know.
yeah. It'll be interesting to see what the NBA does and to see if they can do that. And now, like they didn't just announce these games; they announced that they're playing again in Paris and in Manchester, and so this is something that the league is moving towards. So yeah, the Grizzlies get to be one of the first teams to do it, or in this recent stretch at least. So that's pretty cool. Let's move on. Big picture NBA stuff. The talk right now around the league, Jonathan Kuminga,
Right.
is he right in not wanting to sign a deal with the Warriors? It feels like the Warriors have been saying that they want Kuminga to be a piece, um, but maybe he doesn't feel that way. Clearly, he doesn't feel that way. So that's, I mean, there's not a ton left out there. I think most things have sort of settled down, but that seems to be the one thing that's up in the air still.
Well, there's a little bit of I don't know if game of chicken is the right way to put it, but I mean, there will be a resolution at some point. The qualifying offer has been extended. The most recent reporting is that they've offered him 2 years, 45 million, but the second year is a team option. Um, I can understand Kaminga not wanting to do that, wanting to lock in a bigger long term deal and to do so with the team that actually wants him as a basketball player. And it's not totally clear that the Warriors do. At the same time, I think I would rather do that than play for the 1 year qualifying offer and enter free agency as an unrestricted free agent. Because, if you do the deal they're offering, either you're going to get the 20 something million a year too, or they decline the team option, you're unrestricted free agent anyway. Like, why not take 20 million this year and be an unrestricted free agent than take 10 or whatever the qualifying offer is? But to me, what makes sense for both parties, if you took it to arbitration and I was running the arbitration, right, and they both sit down, they both make their case to me, my ruling would be Golden State, take the best sign and trade offer you can get. You have three or four teams, reportedly Sacramento, Chicago, some others, trying to do a sign and trade deal with you for Kuminga. Take the best offer you can get, but you got to take one of them. That would be my ruling if I were an independent arbiter on this. It's time for you two to go your separate ways. It's time for Jonathan Kuminga to play basketball somewhere other than Golden State. Yes. You have trade offers to make this happen. Let's make it happen, and you should both move on with your lives. That would be my ruling on the case. I don't know if that's what'll happen.
You know, the other thing that not to go back to the Europe stuff, which we just left, but I couldn't help but think about it. You know, in January, with the Grizzlies missing S8E4 for part of the beginning of the season, and sort of they're gonna, like, we all expect Cedric Coward's gonna play and have a role, and like they're gonna have to get some players up to speed here.
It would be better for the I don't know if this is where you're headed, but it'd be better for the Grizzlies if games were pushed late rather than pushed early on the schedule.
Yeah, that's where I'm headed with this. Yeah, I wonder where the Grizzlies are going to be in January, because I keep getting asked. I've been asked this on radio with Jason and John a few times. Like, where do the Grizzlies stand in the West? Like, what would be a successful season? What qualifies a successful season for this team? Is it to just get into the playoffs now? And I keep saying, like, well, hold on. Like, I think we need to see where this team is in December. Like, the benchmark shouldn't be at the end of the season. The benchmark should be halfway through the season. Like, do we feel like this team it's working, this retool around Ja and Jaren? Because, we talked about it. Like, this has the chance to be an on-ramp to something new, to something that potentially could have more success, because you have players with, as Zach Kleiman said, higher-end outcomes. It also has the opportunity to go the other way and be an off-ramp from this era of Grizzlies basketball. And so for me, I'm kind of like, well, in January, we might know that, right? In January, you might have an idea.
Yeah, no, I think you make a good point. To me, it comes down to, and there's so much focus on, like, what winning record would be success this year, or that kind of stuff. To me, like, my question is sort of, what do you want as a fan? Do you want this to work as a John Jaren led team? Do you believe in that enough? Do you want it to work out? I do. I think I would, for if you were asking me. But there may be other people out there who are like, let's blow it up and, like, rebuild, and they want that to be the outcome, right? And so to me, it's gonna head towards one of those outcomes. And so, what outcome do you want, right?
I think most people are optimistic and want it to. Yeah.
Well, no, I agree. But even if that is the case, I think they did this, and I've written about this. They did this deliberately as a medium term outlook kind of thing. That even if it works out, it's the best version of it is not going to be this season. Now, the best version of it needs to be soon thereafter. Like, it might be the year after this season. Like, it can't be like 5 years from now. But they did this in a way that, to me, this reshaping of the team is not instantaneous. I've characterized it as taking in at least 3 transaction periods. The summer, which has already happened, this trade deadline, which will come up, and then next summer when you get that pick that will likely the Phoenix pick, which could end up being a top 3 or 4 pick in a loaded draft, right? And so to me, the quote unquote finished product, as much as you're going to get out of it, is going to take the court not in October of 2025, but more likely October of 2026. And so if that is really what you're pushing towards, I think you want to be pushing towards that. And so it's not so much like what record you get this season or where you land in the playoffs this season. It is, are you on that track?
It's a sign of trajectory, right?
Yes.
What is your trajectory?
You come out of the season believing you have fully rerouted the ship, and then next year could be an all-in kind of situation. Because this year is just not, which is not to put a cap on it. Like, anything could happen. They could, Cedric Howard could pop, Edie could get healthy, Ja could have his all-NBA bounce back, and they could enter the playoffs as a team that could advance multiple rounds. They could be a big threat. I'm not taking it off the board at all, but I'm just saying that it's not the best season they're going to have is likely not going to be this season. It might be a year from now. Like it needs to, if it's going to happen, it needs to happen soon, but it doesn't need to happen right now. They made this trade with the idea that it's probably not going to happen right now.
But don't you think we'll have an idea of that trajectory, or a feeling about that trajectory by December, by January, by those international games?
Yeah, no, I do to some degree. I mean, because it's going to be about the kind of season Ja's having. It's going to, I think it's less about Coward in the short term. If it's about Coward, that'd be a good thing. Because to me, there's more upside than downside. The expectation level should not be that he's like some like major player as a rookie. If he is, like that's just gravy. But it is about Ja at a large extent, and it's about Edie. It's about Edie being able to come back from that injury and be healthy and get back on the track of being a significant starting center in the league. And I think he was headed in that direction. And how much does this injury and the surgery knock him off of that trajectory, right? So I think by mid-season, you have a good sense of Ja, you have a good sense of Edie, you have a good sense of Isolo, and so you want to see that plan coming together, and how much that plan reaches fruition this coming spring of 2026, and how much it takes another year. I think that's to be determined. But you want to have the sense that you're on the trajectory where this plan is working. If the plan is reshaping around Ja and Jaren, the pass fail is whether you believe the plan is working, right? Yeah. I think maybe I got myself to the right answer finally.
Yeah, no, I mean I'm choosing not to look at this season as like a do or die season. I'm choosing to look at this season as one big vibe check. You know, like this is a temperature check on the Memphis Grizzlies in this current iteration of it, and I'm reserving the right to change the feelings on it as the season goes along versus say let's just see where they finish in the final standings of the season, because you never know. I mean, everybody thinks the West is going to be awesome, and it probably will be, but you know, there's going to be twists and turns to this, and like I think a big part of it is just they need healthy Ja. Like that's to me what stands out. Like they just got to keep Ja healthy.
Yeah, I navigated myself to a reasonable answer. It took me a circuitous route, and hopefully I'll do better when I write before the season starts. But to me, if the plan is reshape a true contending team around Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson, the pass fail is the plan working? And that's a little vague because it's sort of subject to interpretation. The plan working doesn't require the team to be a top 2 or 3 seed this season, but you have to feel like the plan is working, that you can get to a true contending team built around Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson on their timeline. So by the end of the season, do you feel like the plan is working? That's sort of my pass fail, which is very much interpretation. It's not a win total,
Yes. With that said, I mean, everybody does think the West is going to be great. Where do you think Memphis stands? In what tier does Memphis stand now that we sort of have had free agency come to an end here?
So I wrote about this a week or two ago, and maybe it'll shift a little bit by the time we get to the start of the season. There's still some stuff that could happen. We talked about the Kuminga thing and some other things, but the way I see the West broadly, I think the Thunder are a tier by themselves. And I think not necessarily in this order, but I think the Rockets, Nuggets, and now Clippers, to me, are sort of the next tier, with Minnesota maybe in that group, maybe not in that group, sort of on the edge of it. And so, I mean, that gets you to 5 teams, right? Which only leaves one spot above the play-in line. I think that the favorites for that other spot are going to be the Lakers or the Warriors. I think the Grizzlies and the Spurs, if they catch the right breaks, could be in that mix. And the prediction I flirted with is that at least one, I don't know which one yet. I probably won't know which one. I don't know which one I would predict, but at least one of Grizzlies and Spurs will finish higher in the standings this year than at least one of Lakers and Warriors, because of the age issue that those teams have. And so I feel like the Grizzlies are in somewhere in that 6 to 10 mix, which is, I think it'd be disappointing if they were not at least a play-in team, but I don't rule out being ahead of above the play-in line either.
Last couple things, then let's get out of here because we've been talking too long already. What do you make of the LeBron stuff? I've never asked you about this. Like there was like this, maybe he might want to finish his career somewhere else, but the Lakers, like, is there going to be a trade for him? Like I don't know what to make of that. I don't know how many more years he's going to play. I would guess no more than 2. Well, I don't see him going anywhere. I don't know who would trade for him at this point.
He is in an unprecedented situation for him, and that he is no longer the best or most important player on his own team. And even if you're the greatest player ever, which LeBron might be, if you play till you're 40, you're eventually going to get to that spot, right? Like you can't play forever and always be the best player on a team. And he's finally played long enough. And it's amazing it took this long. It's a tribute to him that it took this long, that he is not the best or most important player in his own team. I think that's a tough place for him to be and to be comfortable with. And so I don't know. I mean, he's making tons of money to live in LA and play for the Lakers and still be an all-star level player. So I think he'll probably just play out the season with the Lakers and we'll see what happens after that. But to your point, it's not an easy trade situation. I do think if you really try, you can find some scenarios. You can find a Miami scenario, a Dallas scenario, some that might make sense. But I don't think those places put him in a better basketball situation than he's in with the Lakers and playing with Luka. So my guess is he makes peace with where he's at, and he plays out the season with the Lakers, and maybe that changes next year if he plays again. But I kind of think not. I think he wants to live in Los Angeles.
Yeah, here's the thing. If it's not about basketball, if it's not about being on a team that can compete for a championship, and it's about being celebrated, and LeBron wants to go to the place where he's going to be the most celebrated. I mean, Cleveland or LA are the only two options, and part of me wants to say that if you're on the Lakers and you're going to be on national TV all the time and all that, it's almost a better opportunity to be celebrated than in Cleveland.
Yeah.
It might be a little bit more homey in Cleveland, but I don't know, man. Like I don't know how he's not. I don't think he's going to find a better situation than the Lakers. If that's
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar grew old on what became the Magic Johnson team. LeBron can grow old on what's now the Luka Doncic team, right? Like it's happened before; it can happen again.
Luka looks good, by the way.
He does.
Looks in shape.
The summer muscle watch sometimes fools us, but I'm persuaded by this one. I don't think this is trickery. I think this might be real.
He's got lots of very good healthy food options out in LA. He's not getting Texas barbecue anymore. I mean, I think that those are really the main topics. It's the Kuminga stuff, the settle down of free agency, and LeBron watch to some degree. Although I'm not sure anything's going to happen there. Well, I think that's it. Obviously, big news this morning. You can go read. I wrote about it at the Daily Memphian. Chris, you are working on a mailbag, correct? When can people expect your mailbag? When about?
I got so many questions, and there's so little else going on or expected to go on the next few weeks. I'm going to make it a 3-parter this time and just, string it out over 3 weeks. The first one, which will be out maybe by the time you listen to this, probably by the time you listen to this, is already out, but it goes a little bit longer on a couple questions on the arena lease situation and on, reevaluating the Desmond Bane trade and how not the Bane trade as much, but how the team followed up on it this summer, what they did and didn't do with the picks they got. So I got into some of that stuff. And then some of the next couple of mailbags in the next couple of weeks, I'll get into more specific questions about specific players on the team and more of that kind of stuff.
Maybe we should have Sam Hardiman on the podcast. Sam's been doing a lot of the reporting on the lease situation and that sort of thing, and he does a really good job for us.
That's a very good idea. I think we have to find the right moment for that, but that is something we should absolutely do at some point.
Yeah, we should bring Sam on because I know people have a lot of questions about that, and we try to stay plugged in, but Sam is as plugged in as it gets to city government stuff. So, yeah, we should do that in the future for sure. So make sure you're going and reading that. Can you give us a tease? Did you have any particular question that you liked the most from the mailbag? Anything?
Yeah, there's more to life than basketball section. I got to talk about some of my favorite movies I've seen this summer.
Okay.
You got to do a little movie talk at the end if you stay till the end.
Did you watch Happy Gilmore?
I am the wrong. I'm a little bit too old to care about Adam Sandler. That's more my younger brothers. That's more their thing.
Well, listen, I watched it. There's two opinions. I don't know if I'm sure since you are so dialed in on the film scene here, the opinions are it's totally terrible or it's not good, but what did you expect? Like those are the two opinions.
I like Adam Sandler and like non-Adam Sandler movies, basically. Like I like him in Punch Drunk Love and Uncut Gems and some of that kind of stuff. Even Funny People, which sort of plays on his persona a little bit. But the quote-unquote Adam Sandler movie, I think I'm allergic to it. It's just not my thing.
You didn't like Billy Madison? You didn't like any of those? Nothing?
I think I was in college when those things were happening, or maybe right out of college. And I was not 14.
It's dumb humor, right? Yeah.
I was not a 14-year-old boy back then,
It's dumb humor. But you know what? I found it to be watchable. I found it to be watchable as someone that did grow up watching all those movies.
Right.
But anyway. All right, well, I'll have to check that out, figure out what movies to go see. Chris, by the way, people are going to hate that I'm plugging this in here. Tomorrow night only at Malco Theaters. We're recording this on Wednesday, July the 31st at Malco Theaters. If you're an Alabama fan, I think it's called Nothing But a Winner. Alabama football documentary, Nick Saban and Bear Bryant. I'll be waiting for your review, Chris.
Fordyce, Arkansas's own Bear Bryant.
Yeah, I'll be waiting for your review, and I'll come in here and tell you how it was. But that's enough of that. All right, that's going to do it for us this week. We will be back talking more Grizzlies. But for Drew and for Chris, we're out of here.